Welcome home. I'm Dr. Thema, a minister, licensed psychologist, and sacred artist, and this is Homecoming, a podcast to facilitate your journey home to yourself. While I will provide weekly inspiration and mental health tips, this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. I'm so excited you're on the journey. If you want to request specific topics or share your progress, email me at homecomingpodcast@gmail.com. Also, after you listen, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. Welcome home, Cojourners. Glad to have you with us for another episode. And I'm excited we have a poetry submission from Catherine Spearing. And those of you who are writing poems about your homecoming journey, you can send it to me at homecomingpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to read them and with your permission to share it with our Cojourner collective. And so Catherine's piece on her homecoming is called The Gift. I'm in a dusky green meadow with waving, bending grass. A little girl approaches, a girl I know so well. Standing there in front of me, her face reflects my own. In her hands, she holds a box, wrapped with string and bow. All at once, I'm crying, speaking to the girl. I'm sorry that they hurt you, for the fearful life you had. I'm sorry you were happy, but beneath it all was sad. I wish I could have saved you and told you how to fight. I wish I could have held you while you shed tears in your bed at night. The little girl takes my hand, eyes a shiny blue. Inside this box, I have a gift for you. I take the box, unwrap it slow, my hands a trembling mess. What memory will the box reveal? I lift the lid with dread. I gasp a bit, surprise, delight. I smile at the girl, she smiles back and hops away calling, say what you want to say. My heart skips 2 beats before it speaks. The gift is strong and clear. I accept the gift, a deliberate choice, and turn it all around. I use my words and thank the girl, for she's gifted me my own voice. Oh my goodness, Catherine, that is absolutely beautiful to encounter our younger selves and to reclaim our voice after the hurt, after the sadness, the disappointment, the dread, and then to be able to get our voices back. What a gift and an intentional gift that we can give ourselves. And so we are so grateful for your gift of poetry and for you sharing that with us. So thinking about sadness and the depth that sadness can hold, getting to the point of depression, we have our topic for today. I received requests to cover seasonal affective disorder, seasonal affective disorder, which has also been called the winter blues or winter depression. And so I want to talk with you briefly about what that is and that if it is something that you experience, there are some strategies that are helpful for you to get through this time of year in particular. And so, seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression usually comes at the same time every year. And most people start having their symptoms in the fall, and the symptoms continue into the winter months. And so, during this time of year, you may feel like your energy is lost or lower. You may feel a depressed mood. And for some people, seasonal affective disorder can strike in the spring or early summer. And if you have it in the spring or early summer, it often is experienced as anxiety, an increase in anxiety. but I'm going to talk about it for during these winter months, the winter blues or winter depression, that depression that hits this time of year. And so some of the symptoms that you may experience are feeling depressed most of the day or nearly every day, losing interest in activities that you used to enjoy, having low energy, having problems with your sleep. And so that may be difficulty, often it's difficulty waking up. And so, really having challenges around your energy level, experiencing changes in your appetite or weight. And we know for some of these symptoms, you all may associate them with what we are experiencing related to COVID-19. But you want to think about if it is a pattern or a cycle for you associated with this time of year. And of course, for the formal diagnosis, you would want to see a mental health professional. But to start reflecting within yourself of, is this time of year usually more difficult for me? And we also want to tease apart whether or not it is related to the holidays being difficult for a number of people. So sometimes people have distress around the holidays because of grief and loss or painful memories associated with family. But then there are other times when it is really starts in the fall season and is going throughout. It usually starts milder, and as the weeks and months continue, it gets more severe. And so feeling sluggish or agitated, having difficulty concentrating, focusing, remembering. And then if you've been feeling hopeless, worthless, or guilty. And again, I want to distinguish that from a COVID-19 related depression versus if this is an annual experience, right? That around this time of year, this is what usually happens for you. And for some, there are thoughts of death or thoughts of suicide. And so when this hits during those fall and winter months, it often includes oversleeping. And so that's what I was mentioning of difficulty mobilizing, difficulty having energy to get up and experience your day. There also can be the specific appetite change during this time of a craving for foods that are high in carbohydrates. And we often call those comfort foods, right? So during this time of year, looking for comfort. And we've had an earlier episode on emotional eating that sometimes we are looking for nurturance from our food. And it's not nourishment, right? That the nutrients that are inside, but a level of comfort from the food. And so, related to that, craving for foods that are high in carbohydrates, like breads, potatoes, rice. We also can experience weight gain. So, some people gain weight during the fall and winter months, and that can create a cycle of feeling worse about yourself or feeling more depressed, and then, the gain continuing. And then overall, a sense of being tired and having low energy. So, if you have experienced seasonal affective disorder or winter depression or the winter blues, there are a couple of things that I want to help you to keep in mind. One, we want to be aware that seasonal affective disorder is diagnosed more with women than with men, but there are men who have it, and men who have it often report a more severe level of their symptoms. We also see that it's more frequent with young adults than for older adults. And some of the risk factors include family history. So, thinking about if you have blood relatives that have had seasonal affective disorder or another form of depression, so it may, in some ways, run in your family. And also, if you already have major depression or bipolar disorder, those symptoms and experiences can increase during the fall and winter months. So if you're noticing that for some people they're having depression throughout the year, but that it intensifies during this time, you want to be aware of that. And so the complications that can come as a result of this when we think about the journey home and reconnecting with ourselves, that if you are having the winter blues or winter depression, that often during this season, you're withdrawing even more from people. So I know we are already, many of us, physically distancing or trying to physically distance, but feeling even more disconnected and withdrawn from others. So that may include people calling and you're not responding to the calls or responding to the texts, or some people are trying to organize either small gatherings or online gatherings and not being responsive, not having the motivation or the energy to engage. It can also create difficulty with school or work because while we know one of our episodes was on purpose, and a part of us coming home is living out our purpose and manifesting our gifts, but we know that that is not a simple path for any one period, but there are additional barriers and challenges if I am trying to move in the direction of my purpose, my dreams, my goals, and my body is not cooperating. And my brain is working against me, right? So you may have a vision for your life, and then find you don't even have the energy for it, right? That you may have a vision, a calling, and purpose, and yet feeling incapable, hopeless, helpless, powerless. And so we want to really give ourselves grace and compassion as we think about the ways that our mind and our body, the way our emotions can work against what we would like to do with our lives, what we would like to be in the moment in this season. And so, if you've been having difficulty focusing with schoolwork or with your regular job and not getting things done, procrastinating, and just finding it difficult to engage, you want to be aware of the possibility of seasonal depression. And another complication for many people is substance abuse. And so during this time of feeling worthless or powerless or being harsh with yourself because of the weight gain or the lack of productivity, sometimes we try to medicate that distress. And so if you find yourself during this time drinking more and smoking more, or taking more pills and various drugs, you want to be thoughtful about, what has shifted for me, recognizing when at some point it may have felt under control or in moderation, or maybe not even at all. And then during this time, you have noticed an increase in cravings and a desire, an increase in even the amount and the usage. So you want to be tuned into that. For some people, it can also connect with an increase in symptoms related to eating disorders, and we mentioned the food before, and then also suicidal thoughts or behaviors. So these can be very serious, obviously, and so we don't want to be dismissive. And as I note that, we don't want to be dismissive of ourselves, but also we don't want to be dismissive of others. And so, even though sometimes people use that term, winter blues, which sounds very light or mild, you want to take it seriously if someone shares with you that they experience that. Because, when we think of blues, we may think, oh, you just feel a little sad or a little down, right? But some people really are struggling with clinical level depression and recognizing the ways in which that can be harmful to us. We want to really be tuned in to and compassionate with each other as we mentioned in the prior episode on depression, that if you have never experienced it, you want to be really careful about not being dismissive in your comments or not being minimizing or telling people they just need to shake it off or they just need to try harder. We really want to operate from a place of compassion. And so, what are things that you can do if you find yourself struggling with winter depression or seasonal affective disorder? One of the things is access to sunlight. And so, the more you can get exposure to the sun during this time of year, it often will have an immediate effect on your day, on your mood, on your experience. And so, whether that is sitting outside, sitting by a window, going for a walk, trying to really enjoy the sunlight can be really a game changer for you during this time. And so, having to be intentional and I know for some people, you're working during the day, and then by the time you finish working, it's already getting dark. And so trying to be intentional about it may mean that I want to wake up a little earlier, which, and we already said that's a struggle, right? But trying to get up with enough time to get some sun exposure before my work day or school day starts. And then if you are able to have like a lunch break or other breaks during the day, when possible, to step outside or to be able to go for a walk so that you can get that light in because this is not only a cognitive piece, but it really is physiologically, right? That it is a bodily response. When we look at the causes of seasonal affective disorder, it really is an experience in the body. And so while we also can recommend cognitive therapy or behavioral therapy, we also want to really make it a priority to try to get some sun. And there is also something called light therapy. And so people can purchase special lights to keep in their home to have that access, especially during this time of year along with either the artificial light or natural sunlight. One of the other really helpful things has been physical exercise. Because as I mentioned, seasonal affective disorder is really, operating on the physical level. And so in order to shift it, to shift the body, that along with sunlight, getting moving, right? And so finding, and I was talking to someone the other day about exercise and how you have to really explore until you find a form of exercise that you like. Because if not, if it is only a chore, a duty, an obligation, usually we won't stick to it, right? Because it's already going to be a struggle if you're feeling depressed to exercise. And so trying to find something that awakens you on some level. So for some people, that is aerobics classes, and even now they have them online. For some people, it's weights or for some, it is cycling or walking or running, or if you have access to it, swimming. And so, looking for what is the movement, yoga, right, is another one. So, looking for what is the movement that speaks to me that I can get some level of enjoyment from, which will make it more likely that I will do it. For some people, it's playing sports, which we have challenges with that currently with COVID. But looking at your options so that that can be a regular part of your routine and of your practice for your wellness. Another important one is social support. So pushing through that isolation and reaching out, even if it's brief, even if it's texting, to really be mindful about not being consumed by that pull for alienation, disconnection, isolation,
because when we isolate ourselves and we're already depressed, then the mind can begin to tell us all kinds of myths and distortions about ourselves. And so, not only to reach out to family or friends, but what kind of family or friends, right? Because there are some people who, if you communicate with, the depression may become more severe. And so, I want to be thoughtful about the social connections that I do make, the social interactions that I do engage in, since I already have limited energy and in some ways a fragile sense of myself, particularly during this time, then I want to really be thoughtful, intentional, mindful about reaching out to people with whom I don't have to perform, reaching out to people who care, who are compassionate, who are kind, reaching out to people who are understanding. And I know when I've shared reflections like that on social media, many people will say, well, I don't have any of those people. And so I would encourage you, even if it is virtually and online, to start trying to make some of those connections and contacts. And again, with it being online initially, that may feel very surface, but there are also online support groups and social media groups that are organized around particular topics or identities. And so, uh, trying to break out of isolation. And I want you to know here at Homecoming that none of us are by ourselves, right? We are making this journey together. And so you have a co-journers community that is here as well, hoping for your wellness and hoping for your energy and your renewal and to be able to sustain during this difficult time of year. And then, along with the sunlight and exercise and social support, you also want to be mindful about challenging those distorted thoughts. And so, there's something called self talk, which is the way I think about myself, the way I talk to myself about myself. And sometimes we are thinking very negative, unhealthy thoughts about ourselves. And if we let those go unchallenged, then we can believe them and take them as truth and then live out of a lie, right? That says that I am unworthy, that I am not smart enough, not good enough, not enough, right? And so to be able to talk back to those messages, to challenge those messages, even if I do not fully feel good enough or confident enough or worthy to just raise the question, right? What if, as someone posted today, I could be flawed and still worthy? What if I could be imperfect and still enough? I think that's so important that with my imperfections, with my faults, with my failures, with my insecurities, with the missteps and mistakes and errors of my life, with all of that, that I am still worthy of compassion, of gentleness, of love, of kindness, of respect, right? And if it's hard to believe it for yourself, to think about it in terms of the larger realm of humanity, right? Of what does someone have to be or do that disqualifies them, right, from care, from respect, of compassion, of our human rights, yes? And so shifting and challenging those distortions, myths, lies that we have been taught about ourselves or that we have come to believe, particularly during this time of dealing with that seasonal despair and depression. And then it's also going to be mindful to think about your eating. I mentioned that sometimes we're craving things that turn into a vicious cycle, right? I'm craving foods that end up making me feel guilty or that cause me to gain a lot of weight, and then I feel worse about myself. And so, starting to, as an act of self care, a radical act of trying to care for myself, to try to eat some things that actually nourish me, right? That not just numb me. As as I'm thinking, making the decision if I'm going to eat that or that, as opposed to simply numbing myself or medicating my pain, that I want to feed this body. I want to feed this body something that will give it healthy energy, that will fortify my bones, my muscles, that is good for my skin, right? That is good for me, for my system, my respiratory system, my reproductive system, my skeletal system, my muscular system. That I want to give this body some care, even with all that this body has been through. As our poem was talking about, looking at my younger self. So as I reflect on the challenges of this life, with all that I have been through, I want to give my very cells. I want to give my blood. I want to give my organs something that is good to them. I want to be good to myself because we have had moments when others were not good to us, and we have had moments when we were not good to ourselves. And so, in this season, especially in this season, fall and winter blues, depression, despair, that I want to intentionally, as an act of defiance, put some things in my body that are good for me. I want to put some things in my body that speak life, even as I'm having thoughts of death. Yeah, that is a powerful act that you can take during this time. And for those who are really in a severe or challenging place with it, as you're hearing these pointers, you may be saying, it's not that easy, or I tried that. And if that is where you are, then I would really encourage you to think about getting the support of a mental health professional. And they may also recommend medication. For some people with seasonal affective disorder, medication is recommended and can be helpful. And so we want to not rule out uh, what works in terms of our healing journey and our journey back to ourselves, and not to have a hierarchy in your mind of, well, certain people can do it this way, and so why do I have to do it that way? So we are all on the journey home, and what we utilize and what we need as we are making our way back home to ourselves, it may vary. And at the same time, we are worth it. You are worth it. You are deserving of care, of relief, of support throughout the year, and especially during these times that are difficult for so many. So I am grateful that you're here, and I hope that you can make a commitment as we think about homework, that we can make a commitment to do something good for your body and your heart and mind this week, whether that's what I'm eating or the way I move my body or getting sunlight. And then the last tip is reducing your exposure to stress. So I don't know who or what has been stressing you out. I don't know who or what is the culprit that has been contributing to your depression or despair. But I invite you to think about any changes that can be made from your end. Sometimes we are waiting for other people to change. So we're going to shift from waiting for other people to do something, and for me to think about, if I want to reduce stress in my life, what is a change that is in my power, that is in my hands to make? If I want to reduce, and I'm going to take away the if Because I want to reduce stress in my life that contributes to depression, I have the capacity to make some changes. And the change that I want to make is, and you can journal about it, you can tell a friend about it as an accountability partner, you can pray about it, you can reflect, put it on a sticky tab and stick it on the mirror, whatever you need to do to inspire, motivate, encourage yourself to align your life in the ways that you can, that I value my mental and physical health, and I would like to live with less stress. And some stress is beyond me, right? When COVID-19 is going to end is beyond me. But there are some things that are in my immediate circle, my immediate life, in my functioning, in the ways I approach my day. There are some things that are within my hands. And the things that are within my hands to do, I'm going to do it because I believe it will be worth it, that I am worth the effort, that you are worth the effort. I invite your soul to tell your heart, mind, body, and spirit, welcome home.